Good afternoon and welcome to the Diverse Businesses Support Services Center training on joint ventures. My name is Saeed. I am the Director of Diverse Business Support Service Center here at Cheney University. So today, as I said, we'll be discussing joint ventures. So first off, let's look at what a joint venture is, okay? So in this training, we'll be discussing what a joint venture is, the benefits of a joint venture, the partner assessment, joint venture agreement, liability, taxes and reporting, and then termination of the joint venture. So what is a joint venture? The Small Business Association describes a joint venture as an association of individuals or businesses that engage in and carry out a specific or limited purpose for joint profit for a defined period of time. This is done for the sole purpose of pooling money, skills, or knowledge. All parties agree to share the profit, loss, and risk in the enterprise. So the Small Business Association definitely gets it right, and I've underlined some of the key elements of the joint venture, which is that it's specific for a limited purpose. It's defined for a defined period of time, and for the purpose of pooling money, skills, or knowledge, and then lastly, to share in the profits, loss, and risk in this specific enterprise. So let's look at the benefits of a joint venture. First, we have represent. So what we have here is that in the world of procurement, um, there may be specific contract um, waypoints that you need to meet, meaning that you have to meet certain criteria in order for the contract to be bid on, and that may be certain years of experience, certain manpower, or assets. And so, in that market, um, you may not, as a small business, have that um, manpower, those assets, um, or those years of experience. So you may want to joint venture with a firm that does, a more seasoned and experienced firm, so that you can in fact gain the bid for that contract. Next, we have the share. In a joint venture, as I said previously in the last slide, you would share the costs, the risks, the resources, and the profits in a joint ventureship. And that pretty much speaks uh, for itself. And then lastly, to leverage another partner's experience and market share. In a nutshell, what that can be described as is if you are interested in the market of denim jeans, but your expertise is in clock making, and you wanted to get into the market of selling denim jeans, manufacturing and selling denim jeans, you would go into a joint venture with a more experienced, uh, seasoned co-venturer to gain that experience and market share. So let's look at the partner assessment. And the partner assessment is pretty much how you would determine which partner or if a partner was good for you to joint venture with. Obviously, you have your own set of criteria, but we've listed some here. One, you want to analyze your partner's strengths and weaknesses. Each party to the joint venture should bring real and substantial value to the joint venture enterprise. Understand appointment partners' motives for joining the alliance. Address resource capability gaps that may exist for a partner, and assess the dynamics within the team that strongly influence the performance, either negatively or positively. Next, we'll talk about the joint venture agreement, which is the glue that holds together the joint venture. It is important that we should note here that these are some of the more important components that should be included in the joint venture. One, you want to identify participants in the joint venture agreement. You want to identify the business enterprise of the joint venture. Is it a joint venture? Is it an LLC? Is it a partnership? Um, then you want to make sure that you have the terms of the agreement. Next, you want to have the operating agreement, and that's how the business will run on its day-to-day operations. And that would also be whether that be management or the administrative matters. Then there's the capital contributions, and that's also laid out in the terms of the agreement, how much money is being brought to the table by both parties to start this venture. And then lastly, we will talk about the dissolution of the joint venture agreement, which is that because joint ventures are only for a specific amount of time, for a specific purpose, there must be in that joint venture agreement a terms of how this new joint venture will dissolve itself. Next, we'll talk about liability. Contract law governs joint ventures, and so that is why it's important to have a joint venture agreement or contract, which would help to govern how the law sees your joint venture, should there be any liability or if there may be a suit brought by either party against the other. If a third party is injured by the activities of the joint venture, all the parties involved may be held equal and liable for those damages. And then lastly, as I said, if you have a limited liability corporation, then only the assets that are the limited liability corporation would be liable at that point, and not the personal assets of the partners. Now, with regard to any of the legal or accounting questions that you may have with regard to this slide, or any questions that you may have in general, you do want to consult an attorney and or an accountant or a CPA. But in an LLC, when reporting your taxes, each individual will file on their personal tax returns on the Schedule C of their 1040 their own personal tax returns, because as an LLC, the funds from the LLC pass through to their individual members as profit. And just as a sidebar, a joint venture can be taxed as a corporation, so you want to keep that in mind as well. And then lastly, we talk about the alliance termination or the dissolution of the joint venture. As I said, all these joint ventures that are created are for a specific amount of time, for a specific reason, and once that comes to an end, you should have in the operating agreement a way or a plan to dissolve the relationship between the two venturing parties. And so hopefully this has been a brief overview of joint ventures. You obviously want to do further research and study into that if that is something that you're interested in doing, but this gives you a cursory view. If you need to contact us, feel free to reach us at the contact information that you see on your screen, and we look forward to hearing from you again. Have a good day.